According to sources who spoke exclusively to the United States Sun, American Pickers actor Frank Fritz may be found residing in an assisted living home. Since suffering a stroke more than a year ago, Fritz has struggled to find the enthusiasm to continue participating in the show. The debilitating stroke that Frank, who was 60 years old at the time, had in July 2022 resulted in his loved ones placing him under an emergency conservatorship and guardianship. As Frank continues to face a long road to recovery, the United States Sun is able to report in an exclusive manner that he is still residing in an assisted living home in order to get assistance with physical therapy. Because Frank lost his linguistic and mobility abilities, that is where he has remained. According to a source close to Mike Wolf, Frank's former co-star on the program, he is currently residing in an assisted living facility. Despite the fact that Frank got his verbal back, the source proceeded to assert that the star has had a difficult time working on his mobility. It has been incredibly challenging for him to find the drive to perform. According to the source, he was able to find the drive to speak, but when it came to the physical treatment, he's not really there yet. Second person who is close to Frank's loved ones said that he is recovering at his own time and is not rushing through the process. According to the second source knowledgeable with the situation, he has been working really hard to not overdo himself and stress himself out and to honor his health. In no way is he attempting to prove something to himself or going beyond what is reasonable. Respecting what ought to be right now is what he is doing. It is only now that he is receiving physical therapy at the nursing home. I have faith that he will recover. I am certain that he will. The United States Sun is able to report that it does not seem that Frank is residing at his Davenport, Iowa farmhouse on a full-time basis. A medical emergency. After a friend saw Frank lying on the floor of his house in Iowa on July 14, Frank was sent to the hospital for treatment of a stroke. The call to 911 that was made by Frank's pal from the star's farmhouse in Iowa shortly before 11 o'clock in the morning was retrieved by the United States Sun. Upon my arrival at my friend's home, I saw that he was lying on his floor in a scattered position. He is unable to communicate with me. It's possible that he's having seizures, but I can't say for sure, the buddy remarked. State of conservatory. An emergency appointment of a temporary guardian and conservator was then submitted for the celebrity on August 18 by Chris Davis, who has been Frank's friend for a very long time. According to court documents from Iowa that were acquired by the United States Sun, Frank stayed hospitalized for a month after having the stroke. It was anticipated that he would be discharged to a nursing home on August 19, according to the documents. It is stated in the filings that Mr. Fritz's decision-making capacity is so impaired as a result of his stroke that he is unable to care for his own safety or to provide for necessities such as food, shelter, clothing, or medical care, without which he may suffer from a physical injury or illness. According to the statement, Mr. Fritz's decision-making capacity is so impaired that he is unable to make, communicate, or carry out important decisions concerning his own financial affairs. In the court documents, there was a reference to an exhibit that was provided by a physician, which confirmed that Frank does not have decisional capacity. The court documents continued by saying, decisions need to be made for Mr. Fritz's care and placement, while he continues to recover and receive treatment for his injuries. It is imperative that a guardian and conservator be appointed in order to prevent any imminent damage from occurring to him. The person who submitted the petition asked for Frank's guardian to be a different longtime friend of his who has been assisting him in decision-making since the stroke. For the purpose of managing Frank's financial matters, a bank will be responsible for paying for Frank's care at the residential facility, controlling his commercial interests, which include partnerships and businesses, paying for his residence and the expenditures associated with his day-to-day life, and ensuring that he has enough transportation to medical appointments and other duties. COMPLICATIONS with health at Haoing. Despite the fact that Frank did return to his home in Iowa for a period of time, he continued to struggle with his persistent health problems. Prior to this, the United States Sun was able to receive 4,911 calls that were made from the residents, which ultimately led to Frank being sent to the hospital. On November 17, 2022, Frank's caretaker called 911. The reason for the call was that Frank was having a seizure. The operator was informed by her that he just returned home from inpatient rehabilitation for a stroke. Right now, he is experiencing a full-blown seizure, maybe more than one. The man has been trembling. Afterwards, while she was being transported to medical, she inquired with the operator about whether or not there was anything she could do to assist him. And further caregiver called 911 on December 7, 2022, reporting that their patient had high blood pressure. During the call, she said, "I have a stroke victim who is 59 years old and has elevated blood pressure." She could be heard telling Frank, "You have to go because your blood pressure is too high." You could hear Frank groaning in the background as she spoke to him as she was saying this. "Oh," was his response. On December 21, 2022, another caregiver contacted 911 for possible pneumonia. This was the second of two calls that were made simultaneously. Next that Frank's guardian phoned the next day. "An ambulance is going to be required in order for me to transport someone to the hospital, since I believe they are suffering from pneumonia. As the protector, he suffers from a disability." During the conversation, he said that he was confined to a wheelchair. Preserving strength. In the month of August 2023, a close friend of Frank's lauded the star for the development he had made. Every day, Frank continues to get better. It is impossible to return to 100% after a stroke, but he is doing well. The friend had earlier said to the United States Sun that he is aware of what is taking on. You would be able to have a conversation with him if he were sitting here at this very now. The same old Frank is still around. After having a stroke, Frank was unable to go about without the use of a wheelchair and even had a ramp made outside of his home in Iowa. It was revealed by the buddy that while he is able to walk, he will always use the wheelchair since he is unable to walk for extended periods of time. "You basically lose motion," she said. His mobility was gone. Stroke may affect either the left or the right side of the body. In this case, it afflicted the right side. "It's the same old Frank," she said. "He has a positive mindset as well as a wonderful sense of humor. His frame of mind is enthusiastic. Regularly, we make jokes to each other." The insider continued by saying, "You have to make the most of the situation so that he has come to terms with everything that has happened. He has a good understanding of things, he is a cheerful person, and he has a good sense of humor." The American decisions. On American Pickers, Frank had his most recent appearance in March of 2020. After taking a sabbatical from the program to have back surgery, he ran into a disagreement with his long-standing co-star Mike Wolfe, which caused him to leave the show. Robbie, Mike's brother, participated in the show in lieu of Frank so that he could be with Danielle Colby. In spite of their disagreement, the two were able to make amends during the Memorial Day weekend in 2023.